Good evening and welcome to this week's Black Mental Health is Black Health. I'm your host, Miss B, the Black Couch Therapist, and we have an exciting guest who you'll meet in just a few minutes. But if you've been here before, you know we got to take a few deep breaths to kind of decompress from the day and just get ready. My guest gets to take those breaths with us, and so let's do it. Breathe in, two, three, four, out, two, three, four. In, two, three, four. Out, two, three, four. One more. In, two, three, four. Out, two, three, four. Just that woosah, that breathing, taking a
Yeah,
few deep breaths to help you get through whatever the day may have brought your way. Just that time to say, whoo, and we all need it. What
yeah.
was that breathing like for you, Miss V?
I like it was, something I'm gonna try more often. I didn't realize how just a minute of breathing, how much of a difference. It's almost as if some maybe some new energy I
Yes,
gained some new energy from somewhere. And it's like, it which I haven't had a negative day, but anything negative would probably be just like expelled, and it's almost like, it gives me a chance to kind of like start over and see what the rest of the day holds, and not just focus
awesome.
so much on what could be or what has happened.
And that's why I encourage the deep breathing all
I
day
love
long,
it.
anytime you need it. So we practice it every week.
Yeah.
So you get to tell us,
Didn't know
who
we
are
had
you,
started
and
that
tell us
long.
something cool about yourself.
Well, my name is V, and I do some things. I've always been an advocate for the community in different ways. Years ago, I founded the Corner Store Watchdogs here in Houston, just to give you an example of what I mean by that, because I didn't like the way the city had rules for corner store merchants. Let's just say, for example, they could sell those bongs behind the counter, those glass bongs behind the counter. But if anyone in the neighborhood were to buy one of those things, then the police could arrest them. It didn't make sense to me. So I challenged the city on things like that for the community. Those are small steps that, my team and I take for the community, but they're necessary for the community people themselves. So we've always advocated for the community in ways that counted, and in ways that, and we like to show people that when you think things can't be accomplished, or when you think things can't be done, they really can. You just have to know what the rules are, and you just have to work a plan. Now, and so we do have done quite a few things in the community and for the community members. But for the last 30 years, and I do have a real estate background as a real estate agent and as a broker, and I have been licensed in several states throughout the years. But what has always troubled me in living in Texas, I'm from Louisiana, so I even have Texas ties as a child. We would come here and visit family here in Louisiana. And of course, they had property and they left property for us. And so I learned how to invest in property, and knowing some things about, real estate was a lot easier for me to do. But I realized that a certain component of the community did not know. And the biggest thing I noticed, especially I could visualize, gentrification happening. And I knew that wasn't the best thing that could happen to our communities. And I'll tell you why. But and so I noticed as an investor, though, that a lot of times our people were not even notified that their properties were being taken for tax foreclosure auction. So we started focusing on that. And I took my real estate background from several states, started teaching our community how to invest in tax lien properties in different states, and with online courses. And then we started acting as advocates for the community. Now here we are, investors, but at the same time, now we're, and then we become a property retention business. That's important to me because number one, property retention was important to the people and to people like my folk who came here from Louisiana. What if they could not have afforded to pay their taxes because property values kept raising because of powers that were not in their control? It's a game out here. I don't know if people know this. It's a system, and so I started having to teach people how to retain. We're a property retention business. We're investors, but we also are our retention business. So for our protected groups like veterans, seniors, the disabled. We want to make sure they can age in place and not have to worry about losing their property. And then there are people who are heirs of people who own property. And we want to make sure that their titles are straight, their titles can clear. Because if they do want to sell, we want them to be able to sell with clear title. Because that has been a problem in our community. People have taken the fact that titles aren't clear and they have capitalized on that by coming to people and saying, "Oh, you've got these tangled titles. I'll give you, $1,000 for, all this property. Pay your taxes because you're not going to be able to clear the title. Those type of things." So now we became an educational component out there in the community by doing title search checkups, checking title for people every quarter, every month, or now monthly, to make sure that their properties haven't been stolen and compromised. It's a lot of
I'm gonna
title
jump
theft in
in
our
here.
community.
As you see, Miss V is
I'm
passionate
sorry.
about
That's
what
me.
she's
That's
talking about.
me though. That's
And
who
let
I
me
am.
tell
I'm
you
sorry.
how passionate she is about doing it. We've been
I'm
trying to do
sorry.
this show for a few weeks and something would happen. And she was like, today is going to happen. If you notice, she is in her car. She says she pulled over because something else came up and she was not going to let it get in the way. So you're
Hey,
going to be talking tonight with somebody
hey.
who is totally passionate about it.
And I'm sorry. I can
And
go. I can go on and on. That's why I told you I have to have these notes to stay on
so
topic.
she told me
I'm
to
sorry.
keep her on. So if you see me saying, wait a minute, hold on, she told me to do that. So I'm
Oh,
going to
sorry,
do
but
it.
yeah,
She
it
is
is. I
awesome
know me.
because
I know myself.
we really want to hit on, she has so many topics that she does. She does so much. And we wanted to talk about insecurity. And people don't even really, it might not be a term you know. So, Miss V, would you just define home insecurity?
So we were talking about home insecurity that leads to mental health issues, right?
Or just what is home insecurity,
Okay.
period?
So to be home insecure, and again, I'm just going to take from my notes, so I won't go off and on another way. It refers to when a person has a lack of stable, affordable, safe, or permanent housing. It influences our health, physical and mental, and it causes stress, um, illness. To be home insecure means that you're worried about whether this property that your grandmother left is going to be, whether the tax office is going to approve you for payment arrangements when the taxes continue to raise due to no fault of your own. Renters experience home insecurity because now, does a landlord who does get a property at auction, are they now going to let me remain? And if I
Mm.
do remain, will the rent be affordable? And so home insecurity refers to people not having the stability, and the mental framework to feel secure about where they live, how they live, without having to worry, and these things leading to more issues, health and mental and physical issues.
So, seems like home insecurity could impact or affect anybody.
It can affect anyone who's uh, who's in the throes of dealing with their housing situation. One of the reasons why it affects the Black community, more, not more, but the reason it affects the Black community the way it does is because we're talking about older established neighborhoods and urban areas.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about newer homes. We're talking about properties that are paid off. We're talking about properties that no longer have a mortgage. We're talking about properties where the owner bought it and maybe deceased, and now it's owned by generations of heirs. So the only thing they have to pay are, taxes. But taxes have really, really caused a lot of people in those communities to lose those properties. And so if it can affect you as a person with a mortgage, because when you have a mortgage, the mortgage company technically in essence still owns the property, so you can't get into tax foreclosure problems. You
Mm-hmm.
can't get into problems, these type of problems, because you do have a mortgage. The property is owned by if the taxes go up on a property with a mortgage, then of course the mortgage company just makes the monthly
Mortgage
payment
payments go
of the
up.
person, just it increases the monthly payment. That's what that does. But so
So a
that's why it
person
affects our
who is
community so much.
So a person who's living in heirs property, maybe it's your parents' property has been passed down, is paid for, but the taxes could go up so high, you not think about it. And I know sometimes I've worked with people who say, well, put your taxes aside like you would pay mortgage. Every month, put some money aside so when you get that big tax bill, but everybody can't afford to do that. But
And
there's
that
some ways, but
sounds good. That sounds good. That sounds like a plan. But gentrification and predatory
hmm
investors causes the tax amounts to continue
hmm
to raise. And so we have heirs now that are maybe in their 60s,
hmm
heirs of people who, so now they're on a limited fixed income.
right.
I'm headed to court now to help some people file some documents for court who, um, you know, they didn't know. They were trying to do this the right way, trying to file probate, and when I looked at the will, realized that it just wouldn't even stand up in court because of the way it was written. So now we have to do this or that. Now I have to tell them what to keep. So what's important right now is to let me remain in the house. So call the tax office. Make payment arrangements on the monthly payments. Call Linebarger. That's a law firm that collects taxes and takes you to court. Make sure
Well,
you
what
get
are
someone's name and phone number down, that type of thing.
mhm.
So,
When you say that, I want to back up because you just
mhm,
said a lot and
okay.
terms that people may not even understand. You talked about a will, which might leave it to um, the heirs. Then you talked about probate. Could you explain that? Not everybody fully understands that just because you have a will doesn't mean that doesn't have to go into probate. And then they don't even know what probate is. Could
Well,
you
yeah,
break those terms down?
yes. So in Texas, and in most states, but we're in Texas, we're going to talk about Texas right now. When you pass with a will, then you can leave your property to whomever. I mean, you can leave it
Mhm.
to Fido if you want to.
Right.
The state has to respect that. Um, and we encourage people to leave wills, but they're to keep folk from stealing the property. That's another whole subject. We'll
hmm
talk about that on another show. When a person dies intestate, which is without a will, now we leave it up to the state to determine succession. Succession being who inherits after I die. Let's just say mom and dad bought a property. One dies before the other one owns it until the other one dies. Let's say something happens, that person doesn't get just on a will, they have a will, then at least we know the succession is the children come next in line. And if there's no children, then it goes to who it goes to after that. It may go to siblings. If a person has a couple of children, one is deceased, one is not, it goes find out how many children the deceased sibling had, those type of things. So Texas determines succession based on already established laws. and rules. And so that's how heirship is determined. The problem with probate, with not leaving wills, is a will, once you have probate recorded and probate court and established, a judge will eventually deem an administrator. An administrator is the one who doesn't own the property, but that administrator is who makes the decisions. And it
So
keeps
that
us.
administrator is not a part of the family. This is an
Yes, an
outside
administrator
person.
is a part of the family,
Okay.
but it's that one person who's deemed the administrator.
Mhm.
The good thing about that is, as opposed to prop partition or heirs property, which is property that's owned by everyone, that's
Mhm.
another way we lose because families don't agree on what happens. So a will is helpful in the point where it helps us know what grandmother wanted, what mother wanted,
Mhm.
and it also helps to establish order. Okay,
Mhm.
it helps to establish order. The problem is, and I this for this talk may not be a problem, but it can be a problem in that um, um, there could be challenges to the will. Now, that part won't hold up in court because if a person is of sound mind, then of course the will is going to be recorded and this happens. And, and then so we know that now we have and have an admin, but if an estate is only has a house in it and it's under 50, under 100,000 in Texas, you really don't need to go through the trouble of really probating the will because it's going to take a lot of time. If there's any money left in the bank, it's going to eat that money up in the bank account. We just don't have that kind of wealth because we haven't received reparations. So we don't have that kind of wealth for probate to eat up the money that's in bank
Mhm.
accounts and stuff. So, there's some suggestions we make to people, which is the best thing to do, the best way to go for their situation. But that's as close as I don't know if I've satisfied the question about probate and and admin. Admin is the person that the courts, probate courts, deem as the spokesperson or the person who makes the decisions. You know,
Mhm.
uh, for the family
Right.
and and so you get an admin by probate, and the other way of establishing heirship in Texas, if a person dies without a will or intestate, is to establish who the heirs are by what we call heirship affidavits, using witnesses who knew
Mhm.
the family, knew the homestead, knew mom and dad both bought the home and all of that. Now, those people should not be suffering from home insecurity, but they do because they don't know that they can call the tax office and maybe and get and try to get into payment arrangements on the back taxes. It used to be
Mhm.
so when I was investing in property, often the way going to the auction, it would take um, probably 10 years before taxes were 19 and 20,000.
Mm.
Now you can get that in 5 years.
I'm gonna say 3. Mhm.
And depending on the value of the
Depending on the
property,
yeah.
yes. But see, the problem is we have so much predatory investors out there who use strategies and loopholes in court. So even if you did all the right things and you're no longer home insecure, there's still worry in your mind because we just saw last week where the DA's office filed charges against a couple here for forging the documents of over 35 properties here in Houston,
Mm.
in
And
Harris
so
County.
they basically stole those
A lot of
properties.
people who did not have to worry now having to, you see what I'm saying, having to worry. I mean, tangled titles. And the reason people worry is two things. I'm not going to say because lawyers are expensive. I'm going to say because the people can't afford them. Because lawyers
Mhm.
have the right to charge what they want.
Right.
And another thing is that the education, we just don't have the education. And the
And that's
court,
kind of what we are here today. So let me ask you
exactly.
this. As
Hmm.
time is going so quickly,
Okay.
we've talked about the problem, and I know a lot of what you do is helping people avoid getting in this situation. Um, So
A
what are
lot of
some
it is
things
that we actually
would
go
you
out
say?
there and we actually get the properties that they've lost through predatory means, and we restore it back to them. Now somebody's going to go. Now these investors now going to be prosecuted. But we got heirs now who are signing over one person. If you got three heirs, one person signing a deed to an investor. And then these
Hmm.
investors are going out here as if they own the whole property. And they know they got to have two more signatures. Now, those people are now losing their portion, they or it's being stolen. You see what I mean? So it's a lot. But anyway, those kinds of things, we can go back and get your property and restore it back to you to the family. But again, when a person, of course, when those people now have to worry about losing their property, now they have a roof over their head, but they're home insecure because now they're worried. Now they're stressors and that
Hmm.
type of thing. Yes, ma'am.
We're feeling that it could be taken away. And
Exactly.
when I think of being home insecure, the first thing I thought of what we formerly use the term homeless, when we think of home insecure, but it's so much greater. It is people who have property, but so much can happen that you've talked about that can
Yes.
happen to their property. It can be stolen from them. They could lose it because of taxes and not knowing what they could do to change that. Um, so let's kind of look in the last few minutes and talk about the impact of home insecurity on our physical and mental health. What would you
Okay.
say about, let's start with our physical health and then we'll end with the mental health. How does being home insecure, could it impact our physical health?
Okay. Well, it creates constant stress and anxiety over the possibility of losing shelter. Chronic stress can trigger depression and anxiety disorders. It can increase PTSD symptoms. I've heard a lot of our clinical people that I work with tell us that. It does exacerbate substance abuse disorders. Okay. Um, Being home insecure can harm children's development. When you have unstable housing has been linked to higher rates of emotional and behavioral problems in our youth. Okay. Now, as far as the other things are like health deterioration, there's a increased risk of hypertension, heart disease, higher level of respiratory illnesses, inadequate disease management. Listen, you have to have an address to even get help from the clinics. A lot of times, you have to have an address to get help from
Mhm.
a lot of the services. If you're home
Government
insecure, you don't
assistance,
have an
yes.
address.
And I want to go back to that, talk about children for a moment. So I
Yes,
was
ma'am.
an educator and a school counselor for quite a while. And
Yes.
one of the things that I wanted to just really highlight, it's so true. Kids have issues in school. Children have issues in school, and
Yeah.
they can have behavioral issues, and we look at it as a behavioral issue. But children who are home insecure, their anxiety level is heightened. If I don't know where I'm going home to, or if mom, even if they're the ones who are in the home and mom, dad, whoever caregivers are constantly worried about, is somebody going to come take this away? If gentrification has come and they can't afford the taxes, and you're a child and you're hearing this, or you just feel the stress in your home because of where you're living, that can impact a child's mental well-being as well as their behavior. It's hard for me to sit down and do my work if I'm worried. So you want me to
They
go
can't they
home
can't concentrate. They don't
you
even
want me
know
to go home and do homework. I don't, and tell me I need to get XYZ. I can't.
they don't even know if they're going to have a home to go to when they get out of
Mhm.
school that day.
Right.
Children worry about their parents worrying.
Mhm.
For some reason, children take on some of the same type of worry, because they
Mhm.
love their parents and they don't want to see their parents worry. Some parents want to be really honest with their children, let them know what it looks like for them, whether there's a chance of these things happening. And so you can't hide that from our children. because they hear the conversations, they see the mail, they hear they hear us talk to our friends, they hear us talk to our families. I mean, and I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm in a lot of the wards. I'm a proud resident of Third Ward, and
Okay.
trying to keep it as historically and culturally intact as I possibly can. I'll leave it like that, as well as some of the other wards. But I every day it just hurts my heart to see more and more people, women and children, every day now. It's more and more people out there on the street with those baskets, those grocery baskets, and I know that's their belongings. They've been put out, and that's their belongings, and see the children with them, and I just can't imagine what they're having to do. How the children are changing clothes, I mean, all changing for school the next day, and it's got to be a better way to fix this thing. um we can't continue to talk about, oh, well, cut back on the pork and do this or that. Let's find out why people are overeating. Let's find out why maybe pork is all they can afford as opposed to something else. We've got to stop the blame game, and we have to start being honest about what's real out there. People don't want to talk about what's real because some of us are pretending these things don't exist, and others of us are just, you know, trying to do certain things that we have to do to escape the reality of this. Either way, it's not good for us. And we need a real reckoning. We need a real, I'll just say this: Black people really need to come together in closed spaces where nobody else is in the room, just us, and talk about these things and try to see what we can do in terms of getting volunteers, because we got so many problems. There's so many things, out there right now that could cause these stressors, cause mental health. Home insecurity is the biggest one because, let's face it, land is the foundation of it all. Nothing happens without land. Nothing, that is where the most security comes from, knowing we have a place
To
to
lay
lay
your
our
head. And when you said that, I do want to make a comment on the blame game. And we can blame people for their home insecurity. Even someone, like you say, who's in a home and is experiencing home insecurity because they're insecure about whether they're going to have it at any age. It could be someone young who has heirs property, or someone who's older and can't maintain the house, and we tend to blame. You're right. And I did want to comment that we have to get out of the blame game and look at the problem and not the look at the problem and not the symptom. So often we treat
And we
symptoms
just don't have
and
a
don't
lot of
treat a
help out
problem.
there because there is such an anti-black movement going
Hmm.
on now. People don't mind saying certain things that they think is going to upset us, or they think is going to send us back running. But, no, we need to talk. We need to
Hmm.
plan. We need to engage. We need to get volunteers. We need to help each other. All of even the clinical people like yourself and others who know these things, we just need to get together and see what we're going to do and what we can do and what we're going to do in terms of making this thing better. I'm training women. I have a podcast that talks a lot about this. I also have a Facebook group where I'm in there talking to just Black women. I want to engage them. I want the next time we do a title search workshop and things like that, I want them to come out. I'm even training Black people, Black women, for free in order to get more researchers so we can help people to escape a lot of the predatory things and a lot of the loopholes that investors are using in order to take our properties unbeknownst to us. Some people are living in the home and they just get an eviction notice one day.
Right. Let
Taxes
me
are
ask you
paid,
this.
taxes
What
are
is
paid and everything. Taxes paid and everything.
And
They
you get
just
to lose it.
want their
Let me
property.
ask you quickly, because we're out of time, but what
Oh,
is your
sorry.
podcast? So how can people
It's
find
on Spotify, and it's called The Tax Lien Strategist by Vee Decatur. Decatur, the tax lien strategist. And I have a web address. I don't know if you have show notes. We can certainly put them, I can certainly send it to you and put it in the show notes later where people can actually go on to the website and fill out a form if they need help with certain issues or title issues. We don't mind revisiting their issues to see if we can help them get their properties back or to stop the foreclosures or to stop anything that's going to contribute to home insecurity. Again, if we don't have to deal with landlords who are anti-black, then we don't have to deal with renters who have that
Hmm.
who have an issue, and maybe and we can give rent where people can afford. All of these things are out of our reach because people want to gentrify our areas and then don't want to see the people who they've done the damage to.
Well, I'm going to put in the chat ways to contact you so that our viewers can reach you at a later date.
My
We
800
all
number is on the
okay.
website as well. My 800 number
And
is.
what is that? Go on and tell us.
I'd be honest. I have more than one, so I'm not. I can't remember.
Okay,
But if you just
I
if you
got
go
you.
on the website, it's my everything. My business
And the
email address.
website is
It's realpropertylandservices.com. Real property land services with an S.com.
okay. And I was in with a call to action, and my call to action is this: don't allow yourself, if you can, to become property insecure. Know the terms, what our guest has told you, and understand the importance of holding on to your property, and having a will and working with your family and with your community. And
Exactly.
always we end with vote, vote, vote. Be an
Yes.
educated voter,
Exactly.
um, because who you vote for and what you vote for can
Uh,
impact your home security. Thank you, Miss V, for joining us, and I look forward to talking to you
Thank you
again.
for
And I'll make
having
sure
me.
I drop all of your information in the chat so people can find out more about you.
Thank you so much. Have any questions? They can just give me a call. I'll be glad to talk to them. Any questions about anything? It's no question is not a good question. Just we're here to help.
All right.